The JSE All Share Index is down at around 65,900 points so far today, halting 3 consecutive sessions of gains in line with its global peers. Gary Booysen, is portfolio manager at Rand Swiss, joins us now to reflect on that and much more. Gary, welcome to Daytime Update. A good place to begin, I think, today would be with the oil prices, which seem to have moderated somewhat after gaining more than 3%, I think it was, in the previous session, ahead, of course, of a crucial OPEC Plus meeting. Let's reflect on that trend and then what could be decided at the OPEC meeting.
Yeah, so I think part of the moderation that we're seeing is just a slightly weaker dollar. So, of course, if you're looking at Brent crude oil trading around $91 a barrel at the moment, it's being quoted in dollars. So, obviously, a slightly weaker dollar does kind of lift that number. But looking at the OPEC meeting today, I think it's widely expected that they're going to cut production by more than 1 million barrels per day. There has been some rumors that it might be as high as 2 million barrels per day, which is an enormous cut. This is definitely going to take supply out of the market. It's the biggest cut that we've seen, certainly since the COVID pandemic. The initial cuts following the lockdowns from the COVID pandemic. So it's definitely a big deal for markets. And depending on the number, if it's closer to that 2 million level, I'd expect to be quite constructive on the crude oil price, and you should see that rising. I think looking into the end of the year, you've got to remember that the Chinese economy is opening up and growth is starting to come back, so there's going to probably be demand. We're also going to see the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve release come to an end following their midterms. So that also will take some supply out of the market along with these OPEC cuts. And of course, the EU has a ban on it was looking at banning Russian crude exports as well. So it does look like we're going to get a very constrained supply side of the equation, and that probably means that we're going to get higher oil prices into the end of the year.
And a slightly different topic, Infrastructure and Mining Services Group, Venge, has now gone into a sale agreement. The plan here is to dispose of the last remaining significant asset for 700 million rand or so. Is that a good price, firstly? And more broadly, what are the optics here? What are the considerations?
Yeah, so this is part of a long-term, well, not a long-term trend, but it's a restructuring of Venge that goes back to about 2018. And it's really the final asset that's being sold. So it's actually being sold to a consortium, which is now called Trident Steel Africa. So it's a part management buyout. There's Ambassador Enterprises, a couple of other private equity groups involved in it as well. And it is a good price. So if you look at the NAV, certainly the management is very excited about the price that they've managed to achieve. It does still need to go to approval, but it's significantly above the NAV of the business. And it's this is a steel business that they've been trying to get rid of for a long time, and they haven't had any bids anywhere near this price. So it does seem like a fairly good price, and it's going to allow them to now focus on their core operations, which is going to be their Millman's business, which is open cast mining across Africa, and of course McConnell Dowell, which is the Australian engineering concern. So I think it brings to the end a very difficult chapter for Venge. It strengthens the balance sheet and puts it on a good path for growth going forward.
We ask you about the Competition Tribunal, which has now ruled that the Competition Commission should now reconsider a recent ruling which basically denied Caxton a merger with listed packaging group Impact. What is the basis for that?
So this is a very messy one. So looking at obviously Impact, at least Caxton has designs on Impact, and we've seen that in a very public spat between the two management teams. Impact then approached the Competition Commission and said that there hadn't been a formal offer from Caxton, and the Competition Commission had ruled that this was the case, and that the merger was going to be blocked. The Competition Tribunal has now overturned that decision, saying that the actions and certainly the intentions of Caxton are very apparent. They're in the media. It's been buying up. It's up to a 35%, at least a 34% stake in Impact, and it's quite clear. And that means that even though potentially due process wasn't followed, they do see it as as a reasonable formal offer. So that has now been overturned, and I suppose we're going to go back to the drawing board and see if Caxton can take Impact and can take Impact over as they would like to.
And Anglo American's rough diamond sales value for De Beers' 8th sales cycle of 2022 a bit to get out of the way. We've now got that released. Are people actually buying?
Well, people are buying diamonds, that's for sure. They're buying the end product. We've seen very strong demand from the US, in spite of, I suppose, very difficult economies. Now, looking at Anglo-Americans specifically, they're obviously selling rough diamonds, and the eighth cycle, as you mentioned, is actually, it is a more subdued cycle just because it's, Diwali falls in that period as well. So the Indian polishing companies are generally closed over this period, but it was in line with expectations. Nothing out of the ordinary for Anglo-American. A quieter period, so slightly down from the seventh cycle, but overall to do what was expected. So no great shakes there.
What are you buying, Gary?
Well, I'm buying everything I can get my hands on at the moment. No, the markets are looking incredibly cheap. So, looking what we're looking at now is those really beaten down tech stocks in the US. If we are going to see a Fed pivot in the near future, I think you might see a big rally in the Nasdaq. So I like that at this level, but there's no question there's a lot of very, very cheap assets out there. So if you've got cash is king, and maybe deploying now is not a bad idea.
Any diamonds in your shopping cart?
Oh, we hold Anglo-Americans, so I suppose indirectly yes, but yeah, we'll have to wait for, I suppose, the Christmas season before I go and buy consumer products like diamonds. Certainly not with client portfolio money.
Gary Booysen, good to speak to you. Look at the markets this Wednesday afternoon.